If you say good morning, then we can start the session. Hello, good morning. Yes, wonderful. So today we are going to discuss climate change and population aging. So we have two distinguished speakers and two distinguished panelists. So I'll call them and request them to occupy the dais. Our first speaker will be Rajendra Kumar from India. Please come. I will introduce the speakers later. Yes. And the second speaker is Miss Emily from the Philippines. And we have two panelists. I hope they are here, and that is Dr. Bondana Sikoy, Commissioner, Survey Meters, Indonesia. Yes, please. Yes. And also Sari Mutia Timur, Deputy Director, Yakum Emergency Unit, Indonesia. So thank you, speakers and panelists. So this session for 90 minutes, it's in two segments. The first segment will be 45 minutes and the second segment will be another 45 minutes. The first segment will focus on adaptation and second segment will focus on mitigation. As you know that we have yesterday, Chirian Matthew rightly mentioned, there are two major concerns that we have, climate change and aging. So that's what we are going to discuss. So we have a scenario where climate is aging, we have to reverse it. And we have a scenario where aging, which we need to facilitate happen more resiliently, more dignifiedly. These are the two tasks before us. And one is mitigating the climate change and adapting to the impacts of climate change, especially by the older people. So we have gone through a lot of statistics in the last 2 days about the concerns of aging and how when we are talking about older people, especially in the scenario of climate change in the next few decades, we're not talking about just the older people. We are talking about 60% population of the world. They are going to, and we are all going to live in the scenario of climate change. So that is the significance of this session. And another important thing is that in many countries, older people have a very high level civic engagements. And therefore, that must be recognized and that must be included and that must be taken into consideration in conscious policy thinking. And there are many studies that have shown that the households headed by the older adults often have 20 to 30% lower carbon emissions. So this is another important fact that we need to recognize in the scheme of things that of climate change, why older people should not be left out. So I'll keep it there, and then I will let speakers to talk more in terms of how we can realize the inclusion of older people in climate change policy and practice. So we have two speakers. Let me introduce them briefly. We have Rajendra Kumar, who is a senior program coordinator at Gravis in Rajasthan state of India. And he leads climate change adaptation, natural resource management, and community mobilization efforts of the organization. And he has a 35 plus years experience, although he doesn't look like that. Experience of expertise in community development and dryland farming. And we have a second speaker who is Ms. Emily Beredico, who is an Executive Director at Coalition of Services of the Elderly, COS, its short form. Miss Emily is a registered social worker in the Philippines. And she joined COS in the year 2000. And with her hard work, dedication, and merit, she moved to become an executive director appointed by her board unanimously in 2015. And we also have two distinguished panelists. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here and guiding us in this session. Ms. Bandana Sikoi, she is a commissioner of Survey Meter Indonesia. She has 25 years of experience in managing large-scale surveys in Indonesia with RAND. We have seen some of those statistics here yesterday. She has co-authored studies and books on changing and living standards in Indonesia. And the surveys that she has supervised have included more than 83% of Indonesian population and contains over 30,000 individuals living in 13 of the 27 provinces of Indonesia. So this is a very, very significant work in the data collection. And we have another distinguished panelist, Ms. Sari Mutia Timur. Sorry if I am pronouncing wrongly, madam. Deputy Director, ECUM Emergency Unit Indonesia. She has been a director for more than 11 years, focusing on disaster response, community resilience, and climate change adaptation. She has specialized in supporting vulnerable groups, including people with disabilities and older people. And there are many things, wonderful things she has been doing. But one thing I would like to really point out that is very, very significant. She supervises and manages, facilitates a older people park that enables older adults to learn, exercise, express themselves, and engage in activities like training, sports, and religion, fostering empowerment and well-being. This is the kind of scenario we all want to age. Thank you, madam. That's wonderful work. So with that, I will stop here, and I would like to invite Mr. Rajendra Kumar to share his experiences and practices.
Good morning. Yeah. So I am here to present older people-led climate change adaptation in the Thar Desert, India. Next slide, please. Why do matter the desert? Next slide, please. Okay. This is can back. Yeah, next. So why do matter the desert? Why desert matter? So desert constitute 1/3 of the world's land mass. Yeah. Yeah. So about 1/6 of the global population live in desert. Deserts are very important in terms of biodiversity conservation, very significantly impacted by the droughts, and as a result of a lot of older people live in very vulnerable poverty here. Despite that, desert continue to be neglected. The Indian desert is very unique, one of the smallest desert geographically, the most densely populated desert ecosystem in the world where we live. We receive less than 150 millimeter rainfall annually and very drought prone. Very limited resources for the livelihood. Main source are agriculture and animal husbandry. Particularly older people impacted very continuously droughts in this region. Climate change is aggravated the drought in Thar. I represent Gravis here. Gravis is a non-governmental organization in India. We worked on the integrated community development with focus on older people. We are proud Gravis is a member of the global network. We work on water security, agriculture, health, education, and community mobilization. In India, particularly focus on arid region of the India. We take a Gandhian approach to community development through inclusive approach and community participation. No left behind, but all rising, the last one first. We covered a population over 2 million people in Thar. We have a model, Gravis model, OP-led climate change adaptation in Thar Desert, India. The vision of the model is to facilitate and sustain community-level climate action with the leadership of the older people. The model has 4 components here, which are, first one is the community mobilization and capacity building, with creation and formation of the older people-led CBOs, like Older People Association, intergenerational learning groups, older people self-help groups. And we organize trainings and capacity building and strengthening such community-based organizations. Number 2 component is water security. We promote rainwater harvesting technologies, very feudal technology, which led by the older people. The training and capacity building on water conservation, we provide those CBOs and community. Third component is food and water security is very essential for the Thar community. So we demonstrate dryland farming systems. You see the right side, the picture, where is the people stand in their farm field. There is a farming dike, we called in Khadin in Thar. They just harvest the rain in their farm field. On the contour basis, these structures allow to moisture retention in their farm field without any irrigation, and they harvest the good crop and food grain and multiple crops in same field. Because of those technologies they are using. Second one you are seeing in the picture, the lady, is the arid horticulture unit, which provide the nutrition security of the older people, which is very essential for the community who live in the Thar desert in scarcity of the water and climate. Here is another intervention to support the animal husbandry, because the backbone of the Thar people is the animal husbandry. They live with them and they serve with them to the fodder availability through these interventions. Fourth one, documentation advocacy. We compilation of our learnings through publications and studies and disseminate through the media and the hard copies, where is the community level as well as the national and international level. And advocacy campaign we organize to such model, we can disseminate and other areas. We just key messages and impacted our work. Gravis-led model has impacted the lives of the over 2 million people, including about 250,000 older people. Nearly 250,000 OPs are water secure through over 6,000 water storage structures we create in the Thar Desert. About 150,000 OPs have greater food and nutritional security now. Over 200,000 OPs and their families' incomes have been enhanced by $6 to $18 per month. This is very good for them. The interventions are very cost-effective, low maintenance, and sustain and long-lasting. The interventions very environment-friendly and enhance the biodiversity of the Thar. Older people can lead and replicate such a model in arid zone around the world. Such will be disseminate through the Gravis as a knowledge partner in East African countries like Malawi and Kenya. Is a very, very, serve the community. People, migrate nearby Tanzania and Uganda. Now they are establishing their dairy farm and they are continuing their income. So this model is very good to such locations. There is the arid zones. Thank you very much. You give this opportunity to talk to you. Any comments and questions, we welcome. Thank you very much.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can you please play my presentation? Okay, so the project promoting climate adaptive and disaster resilient communities in the Philippines, the role of older persons associations, highlights the key roles OPAs played in building community resilience. What is, sorry, how to, sorry. How to go to the next slide? Sorry. Sorry. Okay. So my presentation is divided into 4 parts. Yeah. Then it includes the project background or context, key project interventions, project outcomes, lessons for policy and practice. For the background and context, the project was implemented in Agusan del Sur. It is one of the provinces in the southern part of the Philippines that is frequently hit by typhoons, floods, and earthquakes, and faces challenges in addressing the specific needs of older persons and other groups at risk. The project aimed to ensure older people's needs were met by maximizing their capacities, especially in disaster preparedness. There are local disaster response teams exist at the community level, but their capacity is limited. So the project aimed to address the vulnerabilities, enhance the resilience, and improve disaster risk reduction management to ensure it is inclusive and sustainable. Actually, the project was already completed, and it was implemented for 3.5 years and covered 30 barangays across 5 municipalities in Agusan del Sur province. To add on the context, there are approximately 50,000 older persons residing in that province. Many of them live in rural and underserved communities. These individuals makes a significant portion of the vulnerable population in disaster-prone areas. Older persons in these areas are particularly vulnerable due to range of factors like pre-existing health conditions, lack of access to health care, economic hardship, and in addition, many older individuals, especially women, are caregivers themselves, further amplifying their need for support. So engaging an older person in this project is essential for several reasons. First, they possess, of course, valuable knowledge and experience about their communities. We know that, which can contribute to more effective disaster risk reduction and climate change strategies. Second, including them in planning, of course, will ensure that their specific needs are adequately addressed. And lastly, older persons' involvement fosters a more inclusive, resilient community where everyone's strengths and contribution are recognized and utilized. For the project interventions, we have some listed here. First is the community risk assessment, wherein the community, together with the older persons associations, identified community capacities and vulnerabilities. Development of the barangay disaster reduction and management and contingency plans for preparedness, prevention, mitigation, and plans, including flood management. Enhancement of the community-based early warning systems, training and equipping community emergency response teams, and small-scale mitigation adaptation activities like tree planting and floating houses. So later on, I will be discussing more on the floating houses. Then strengthening of the older persons associations with age-friendly livelihoods and community healthcare services. So this, as I mentioned earlier, this is some of the mitigation or adaptation activities, the construction of the floating houses. So as part of the adaptation practices, floating houses were constructed in, actually it is only a small community with 358 households, with a total population of only 2,352, including 108 older persons. So the population of older persons in that community is quite small. Then these houses are made of light materials, and they use bamboo and empty containers, as you see in the picture, the color blue, that's the container, they use as floaters. However, only 40% of that households use floaters, while 5% have elevated their houses. So to avoid the floods. Then the majority, still 55%, live in standard houses due to high cost of maintaining the floaters. So it require evacuation to they evacuate to some of the government facilities there, like health centers and schools during the flood season. For the project outcomes, I've listed some here. So the community emergency response team is now better prepared for timely evacuation during typhoons and floods. And the community awareness of typhoon and flood risks has improved, leading to better coordination with the community emergency response team during evacuations. And the role of older persons in disaster risk reduction and climate change is recognized with their representation in BDRRMC to influence policies and programs. And the older persons associations have become more united and stronger in their advocacy. So for some of the lessons from the project that can be maximized for policy or program development and enhancing existing practices, it includes like the older persons, actually when the project was implemented, the older persons were primarily motivated by the livelihood project, viewing it as a central role of the project, despite being, it is only one of the components. So we realized that addressing basic needs is crucial for building community resilience. Local official must recognize older persons as active contributors to programs and services, not just beneficiaries. Then, the older, sorry. So older person must acknowledge their power within, power to, and power with to advocate for themselves. Then inclusion must go beyond representation and translate into tangible programs to address their real concerns. The policy should foster intergenerational collaboration to enhance community resilience. This is my last slide. To conclude my presentation, To conclude my presentation, older persons' inclusion in climate change and disaster resilience policies is crucial, especially in the Philippines, as they bring valuable knowledge, experience, and leadership to enhance community preparedness. Their active participation ensures that resilience strategies are more inclusive to address the specific vulnerabilities of all age groups, so it's intergeneration, and fostering stronger, more cohesive community responses to disasters. Thank you.
Thank you, both presenters. You're very disciplined. You kept your time, unlike me. Thank you so much. So if you see the both presentation, what you see is that too little water, too much water. These issues are always there, but climate change has exacerbated them. And in both cases, you see the older people in the front line being vulnerable and also being champions in managing them and adapting to them. So this is a very interesting contrast that we have seen from India and the Philippines. For the policy, both tell very loudly and clearly that older people inclusion, intergenerational approach, and inclusion of older people should move beyond representation to active consultation, active ownership. This is what we have to take from these interesting case studies from India and Philippines. So now, after this adaptation session, there will be a mitigation session that will be moderated by our very own Eduardo, and there we'll have two more speakers there. And Edward, I would like to ask you, would you like to have panelists' remarks after your session or no? Okay, great. So now I have the honor to invite our respected panelists, especially starting with Dr. Bondana Sikoy. Give about 5 minutes of remarks, and please keep your questions noted so that we'll have a discussion on them later.
Good morning, my colleagues. I would like to thank, first of all, the organizing committee for inviting me to be the panelist in this session. Actually, if I'm standing here, I would say that I don't have much experience in the climate change activities, but I would like to also share my experience in other activities, which can be also a springhold for the climate change involvement in the climate change activities. And we have seen this, we have heard this morning the two presenters that has demonstrated a successful mobilization of older people for climate action. In the case of Garfish, the initiative has been successfully to facilitate and sustain community level climate action in the leadership of the older people, and training capacity and capacity building has been the center of approach. in the Philippines and is in the role of older people in building disaster reliance through community risk assessment, disaster reduction preparedness, and strengthening older people, its friendly livelihood, and community health care services. In cases, the intersectionality of aging and climate changes is particularly a new concern. However, we have experience mobilizing older people and their care provider to provide in community-based care, which has been intentionally organized through intergenerational cooperation. And allow me to explain how the three intergenerational cooperation from the generation of grandchildren to grandparents has flourished in the early phase of a long-term care initiation. The adult generation plays crucial roles as a cadre to assist both active older people in developing their skills and those who are in the state of dependency on housebound. Cadres, primarily women in their 30s and 40s, play a crucial role in the providing home care visits to older members in need. They can also be trained as the case manager to assess the health status and the action to be taken in response to the older needs. And together with the younger group involvement in this support, they were also specifically trained by nurses and community-based health center to help cadre with the health check status and accompany, talk to, and even helping with the daily task of older people living alone and dependent older people during their home visit. In this context, the involvement of a younger group in this sport is crucial for ensuring the sustainability of the program. But some homework is still left. We reflect from the development of the initial community care system that the primary obstacle may be the lack of resources to ensure sustainability. Cadre have problem to access the availability financial resources, and the closest one is the village fund, which is planned in the annual village meeting. We experienced the power imbalances in the community due to the exclusion of older people and their representativeness in social dialogue and decision-making process. In consequence, the meeting will be likely not address the older people individual need. The other reflections is the gender gaps in older men's participation in community care. Most participants in community care are women who are not normally subjected to the care responsibility in taking care of family and community members, including doing domestic and reproductive work, while also attending community events voluntarily. The lack participation among older men in community care is very undeniable in our experience, and they tend to avoid community events. The community-based support for older people that we have been developed throughout the years is the critical standpoints to be considered in the emergency shock during the climate-related disasters. Community-based care can also empower active and productive older people by enabling them to participate in health checks and health posts. Their encounters and community care meetings, older people will stay alive, active, interact with each other, and gradually raise their agency. In this unintended outcome, community care not only focuses on older people in need, but also encourages and raises awareness about older people's active participation in the community. This is the social capital to amplify the role of older people in community and climate actions. What we really want to advocate in this forum is to address the role of community care for older people to increase the resilience of the climate-related risks. First, community-based care has potential to assess the vulnerability and how older adults are more at risk of heat stress, pollution-related respiratory problems, or other chronic conditions that will be exacerbated by climate change. The assessment process is crucial to plan the intervention toward the older people needs. And second, community-based care can also provide a community engagement to raise awareness and knowledge among older people to assess and prepare for their climate-related risks in their environment and early warning system. This actually can be adjusted to the localized disaster risk based on various ecological conditions and climate-related events like drought, slide, floods, etc. Third, given the ongoing development of the CADR and case manager system, it is crucial to ensure that healthcare or evacuation center facility have a tailored emergency preparedness in place. These include items such as medical equipment, alternative power sources, wheelchairs, and other essentials that prioritize the need of older people and dependent family members. Those three addresses are necessary to see the potentials of community care system to climate adaptation and mitigation efforts, ensuring that older people can be more resilient to the impact of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bondana. Now may I invite Dr. Sari Mutia Timu.
Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity given to me, and so I can learn from your presentation and from all of you. So for me, what is interesting from the both presentation, there is a risk identification and early warning system. This is very important. And there has been involvement from older people and ensuring they are important actor, not only just an object, because older people have their important capacity such as their experience. And there are capacity building initiative and ensuring that the program also sustainable by thinking about livelihood, because this is important support for sustainability, because program participant can get direct benefit, can having economic benefit. And it was mentioned from both both presentation, the intervention not only on agriculture sector or DRR sector, but also health, education, and environmental protection. Because welfare also require other concern, not only health, but also spiritual, emotional, occupational, financial, and social. Of course, not all must be done alone, but we should collaborate with other parties. Yeah, it is very needed. It's crucial. And there is advocacy effort as well. And besides, this effort to involve different generation, which is very crucial as well. And based on my organization experience, in developing resilience through intergenerational group, we use 4 steps. First step is to provide strong organizational foundation to strengthen group on organizational and leadership skill through training and involve public role. Second step, the group need to have real sustainable development activity through campaign and resilient initiative in local level. Sometimes we provide small fund for stimulus only, so the group can practice what they have learned from training. We call it community resilient fund in order to run resilient activities. And step to make the group stronger, more sustainable, and does not work alone. The group must build connectivity and network with other actors who can support them or relevant stakeholders, such as government, other organizations, academicians, and also private sector. The fourth step, after the group strong, the intergenerational group strong, they are ready to involve and influence decision-making process and public policy, at least in village level or sub-district level, and then up that in district level. If we get support, sometimes we also involve project participant in regional or global meeting, so they can present their own problems, challenges, and solutions, and also learn from other countries. So we are just only facilitate and become an interpreter. For example, we involve them in EPMCDRR meeting or GPDRR meeting. We call those 4 steps are diamonds approach. And what we usually do is also risk identification and people-centered early warning system. So the empirical experience will be included in risk assessment in order to provide sufficient basis for decision-making and prioritization of DRR action plan. Early warning also will be improved to be accessible for all, including innovation for identifying, understanding, and communicating risks to ensure community is well aware what action that need to be taken. And then reduction underlying risks. This include measures in environmental management, poverty reduction, protection of critical facilities, networking at partnership, and also building social cohesion to ensure a safety net in case of disaster. In order to reduce the underlying risk factor, especially for older people and people with disabilities, they will be provided with a resilient fund in order to run a resilient activity, which has aimed to reduce vulnerability and disaster risk based on community risk assessment and priority action, but having economic benefit in non-disaster situations, as income activities linked to preparedness, for example, small store which serve as logistics supply during disaster, revolving cattle breeding as saving, rental or carpentry or house repairment tools, so that can be utilized as an emergency kit, and then income activities with environmental co-benefit, such as waste bank, ecosystem-based farming, and organic farming, and then income activities coherent with natural resource management, which is accessible for most at-risk groups such as water cooperative and climate adaptive farming. And building preparedness and response is important. Provide capacity building for most at-risk group to be able to become first responder in disaster situation and mobilize community resilient effort. Community is not only prepared to common disaster, but also new hazard that may occur in the future. Local to local dialogue also important, so the group communities identify their priorities and negotiated it with local authorities to improve access and control over resources and services. And regular reflective meeting to identify challenges, good practice, and need to be done differently for better result. So it also important not to forget, provide adequate accommodation so that older people and people with disabilities can be involved in discussion on meeting. For example, provide transportation or transport costs, sign language interpreter, and also using simple language and information. If necessary, using local language. Also provide alternative arrangement. In disaster, we always provide alternative arrangement. So when the solution fails to run during disaster, there is still other option. For example, in our program, we using mist irrigation for agriculture in drought area, use internet access, but a manual way also prepare for backup when there is no internet access. and also always involve and collaborate with government as a duty bearer, and align the action plan made by community with government program so that they are more sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sari and Dr. Bondana, for adding additional perspectives and experiences. We have seen that it is not just what we do, it is also how we do. That's what very clearly through governance approaches and community-based care approaches. Thank you so much for that. So please keep taking your questions on the notebooks, and then I will hand over the session to Mr. Eduardo so that we will move to the mitigation session. We'll have very exciting speakers over there. Then we'll have questions and then discussion. So Eduardo, please. Yeah. So the previous speakers and myself, we are welcome to leave the chair.
Thank you, Hari. Thank you for allowing us to observe these excellent experiences and comments on how older people can be engaged in adaptation. As you know, climate change, population aging has only one option. You adapt or you have a very difficult future society. So change has two options that have to go simultaneously. You adapt and you mitigate the continuous deterioration of climate. In population aging, you just adapt. So we have seen one aspect of climate change now. We saw adaptation. Yes, how older people can get engaged in adaptation. And when we talk about older people, we are talking about, in this region, 600 million people today, 1.3 billion in 2050. And we're talking of a large segment of the population that will be productive, living longer than, as we said, than any generation before. So can you move quickly, please? Next one. I move it, no? Sorry. Okay, go back. Okay, so when we saw this, we started thinking of how can older people get engaged in climate action, not only as preparing for extreme weather events, not only, being resilient, working with their communities to overcome floods and droughts and all that, but older people be really active in climate mitigation. And climate mitigation means one thing, basically, means reduction of CO2 in the atmosphere. Yes? So is there any possible connection? We started exploring that a couple of years ago. And then we discussed maybe older people have a different pattern of consumption than other generations. So we carried out some studies on how older people who are beyond 60, for example, have different ways of using energy, of using transport, of using air conditionings, of food consumption, and all that. And we saw that there are indeed some differences in generations, but it's not too much the difference that can be done. We don't have any conclusive studies about that. Did we say, can older people, I mean, most of you, or many of you pay pensions, pension systems, have contribution to the national insurance schemes in your countries, or pension systems. And those pension systems, mind you, are one of the main sources of funding for fossil fuel industries. So how can we foster a movement of older people that can really connect, become a force to demand their pension systems, not to fund the fossil fuel industries that are destroying the planet? That's a possibility that maybe is for the future. Another possibility is every country, and I think you know, has to develop now yearly national defined contributions to climate change, climate mitigation, climate adaptation. So maybe older people organizations in a country can really inquire before those national NDCs are presented to the annual meetings of COPs, how these processes take place. What is the country proposing, and what can they do better, and how can they engage older people? In some countries in Europe, for example, some older people established legal action. Some older ladies did a very forceful legal action against fossil fuel industries, because fossil fuel industries are destroying the planet. There is no question about that. And then we started exploring 2-3 years ago something called carbon sequestration from the atmosphere and engaging that at community levels. And that's what we want to talk today. And for that, we have, I'll ask our panelists, our presenters, Mr. Sawang from FOPDEF, please, if you can come forward, and Mr. Werner Kosman, who will explain about carbon credits, to please come forward. So let me briefly summarize on this, just what is the situation. This is a representation of what is the weather, and I speak with some passion because I am vehemently believing that we should not leave a world that is unlivable for future generations. So we have now a situation that is represented like that. Emissions are filling the top. Yeah, water levels are coming up and up and up. We are now at the level of nearly 1.5 degrees, which was what the limit set by Paris Agreement. 2 degrees is already almost a catastrophe. 2.5, 3 degrees of increase is certainly dooming humankind. No? So if we close the tap, we reduce the emissions, CO2 will remain in the atmosphere. It is still there. So we need to do something else. We need to open the tap. We need to remove the CO2 from the atmosphere, because the emissions will continue, will be reduced. We can reduce, but there will be always emissions coming from human activity. So if emissions don't go to zero, we need to avoid the bathtub being, and we have to reduce it. We have to open the tap. I hope this just representation is clear. This is what we're talking about, reducing CO2 in the atmosphere. Now, how do you reduce CO2 in the atmosphere? There are many methods. Direct air capture, huge plants in Iceland, extremely costly, is almost unviable. Ocean fertilization, very costly, doable. Afforestation and reforestation, that's what is happening nowadays. But it's carbon removal on not permanent situations. So the cycle does not allow you'll see later. Yeah? And the last one is carbon capture and storage, and we do it by biochar. Carbon capture and storage is a method that through called pyrolysis, where you can burn in oxygen-starved environments, you burn biomass, organic matter, and then you obtain something called biochar that is simply processed and buried underground. That's what we are talking about, biochar, and that's what we are going to explain quickly in this session. So Mr. Quinn, who is a maverick in communities and climate change action, is in the other session of age-friendly cities. So he just presents this with a video. Can we run the video, please?
understand why biochar is so important, we need to go back to the carbon cycle. CO2 is in the atmosphere. Vegetation, when it grows, captures the CO2, but when it rots, eaten, used, or burnt, it releases the CO2 back into the atmosphere, as well as other harmful greenhouse gases and air pollution. This problem with the vegetation in the carbon cycle is its short-term carbon storage capacity. However, if we add biochar to the carbon cycle, this problem will be reduced. Converting vegetation into biochar will release around 20% of the carbon back into the atmosphere, but will store the remaining 80% in the biochar. Biochar can safely store carbon for hundreds and thousands of years. Biochar can help remove CO2 from the atmosphere in 3 ways. First, converting biomass to biochar can store 80% of the carbon in the biochar permanently. Second, using biochar as soil enhancer can improve the soil health, which will capture and store more carbon. Do you know more carbon is stored in the soil than all the carbon in the vegetation and atmosphere combined? And lastly, using biochar can also greatly increase plant growth, which will capture and store even more CO2. There are many ways to make biochar. However, the one that we are promoting are by far the fastest and the easiest methods to learn, set up, and do. It requires the lowest investment, does not require expensive infrastructure like roads, electricity, building, or running water. Our biochar kit is very mobile. You can easily carry it to where it is needed. It is flexible and easy to scale up. You can start from small household scale, costing less than a few dollars, and up to large industrial size, costing millions. It's designed for poor household and community. Besides removing CO2 and reducing air pollution, biochar can also bring many other benefits, such as improving food and security, converting degraded land into productive land, and create employment for a large number of people to grow, gather the biomass, and make biochar and biochar products. This is a $1,000 biochar production setup. It can make 2 to 3 tons of biochar per day. Do you know making 1 ton of biochar is equal to removing 3 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere, which is not bad for just $1,000 investment. Therefore, among the few carbon negative options, biochar is the only one that allows anyone from anywhere to do. Now, I would like to share with you what we are doing to support older people and their older people association in 5 countries, namely India, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Thailand, and Vietnam on biochar awareness, production, and usage.
ว่าของโลกปัจจุบันที่ร้อนขึ้นเกิดจากการปล่อยคาร์บอนของมนุษย์เพราะว่าถ่านไบโอแชร์จะเป็นตัวที่จะช่วยดูดซับคาร์บอนในอากาศ
বায়োসার পরিবেশ এবং জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের জন্য খুবই ভালো এটা আমার মতন নারীর জন্য খুব উপকারী আমি রান্নার কাজে বায়োসার ব্যবহার করি কারণ ওজে জ্বলে বেশি তাপ ধোঁয়া ছাড়া রান্না করা যায় এটা আমার সময় ও খরচ বাঁচায়
Làm than sinh học rất dễ, không tốn nhiều kinh phí. Than sinh học có lợi cho môi trường, vật nuôi và cải thiện đất bạc màu. Tôi mong rằng tổ chức 2, người cao tuổi các cấp, chính quyền các cấp nhân rộng mô hình này trên toàn quốc.
Yes, our world is facing population aging and climate change challenges at the same time. However, if older people and their older people associations are included and invested, they can be a big part of the solution to our population aging and climate change challenges.
Thank you, Quinn, which is in another room. But what we want to convey is that doing biochar is simple, can be done by the communities. It's not a very hard work, can be done by older people associations and older peoples. But it is peanuts, nothing, if we do it in few communities. How can we think of scaling this up bigger, scaling it up to sequester 1 gigaton of CO2? Doable. Don't laugh at me. It is doable. And that's what we want to convey this idea, this initiative to you. And if you see, can you continue with the presentation? Put back. Can you continue with the presentation, please? Maybe I forgot to say please. Okay, so if we go next one. Yeah, so when we think of this project as scaling this up and making a difference in the world, we have to think of several things. First, the production of biochar. It's relatively simple. There are technologies that are being developed that are low cost. They are being done in many countries in the world. The second is how to develop community engagement, and Mr. Sawang will explain a bit how it is done. But in Asia, there are at the moment over 800,000 older people associations, 500,000 of them in China, maybe 350, 400,000 in rural areas. So how can we use that potential? How can we put that potential in action in something that is apparently so simple but so meaningful in sequestering CO2? That's the question that we have. No, Mr. Sawang will explain the small pilot that we have had in 4 countries. How do we get the sufficient biomass? That's another problem. Biomass is the organic matter that you burn, and there are many sources that will be explained by the next presenters. How do we get the certification? Because we are aiming at a win-win situation. We sequester CO2, but communities get money for it. And that's called the carbon credit market that is growing. But to access to that, you need certification. And then Mr. Kosman will explain how the carbon credit market is evolving. And we need the entrepreneurial capacity to manage this. How do you connect with seed funds, with training for communities? How do you develop the technology? How do you connect with the certification entities? So that's what we want to convey this idea. There is this idea, is a nascent idea. Biochar is being already produced in different parts of the world. They are accessing carbon credits, and this is a potential win-win-win for communities. So next presentation will be a brief talk from Mr. Sawang, just to tell you that 3 tons of biomass produce 1 ton of biochar, and 80% of that is carbon, and the equivalent in CO2 sequestration is 2.8 tons of CO2 per day. So if a community manages to get 1,000 tons sequestration at current level of market prices at current prices of carbon credit, would get $100,000. But that's just a figure to stimulate our thinking. The benefits are there, you can see. And the next speaker is Mr. Sawang. He will explain whether communities can engage, what was the experience in Thailand, and the pilots that we did with growing. This might sound a bit like, something of a science fiction, but it's real, it's doable, and we believe in it. Mr. Sawang.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Eduardo. And thank you for the video that show you recently. That will reduce my time. Yes. Yeah, FOPDEP, or Foundation for Older Person Development, is the non-governmental organization based in Chiang Mai, northern Thailand. And next, oh, okay, I can put it here. Okay, what I'm talking about is the age involvement in biochar production. I don't have to talk about the theory or the why biochar and how useful it is. So the video show you quite precisely and very detailed, as well as Eduardo presentation. Next, please. Can you just here? Okay. Now I'm come to talk about the raw materials for making biochar and the involvement of older people club. As Eduardo mentioned earlier, that in Thailand there are more than 30,000 older people clubs, or OPA if you like. So we empower our community to do this. We don't do by ourselves, but we empower the community to work on this. So in the photo here, it show you up the next. Oh. Which one? Okay. Okay, the raw materials for making biochar is the branches of trees. Like in the, this is just only the one example. More, maybe less than 10% of the process of biochar. But in northern Thailand, the longan tree is fell off and the branches left over, so they use this to make as the raw material of biochar. And the straws from corn, rice, and rice husk, because in Thailand, the corn and rice are the main crops of the people. And the next one is bamboo. Bamboo is very important because it grows by itself, or you can grow it in your land if you have, and it grows fast. So bamboo is very important materials for this and other biomass. Next, please. And from this, it's not only the material that I mentioned, even fruit like a coconut or other fruit can be also the material to make the make biochar. The output of that, it could come in solid piece that you can make it like a charcoal for cooking. But in the rural area where most of the people, they still use charcoal and firewood. And it might come, it also come in the powder. So we can have that, like to convert it into fertilizer. Okay. Is that to make a fertilizer is the way how to bring carbon into the earth. Next, please. Yeah, and then when you get the biochar as the fertilizer, you can use that for the organic farm. So organic farm is very popular I think, in this region because it is safe. This is a kind of in line with the safety food. So this is why they use the products of biochar as the fertilizer. I missed one. Can you go back to the first one? Back again? Back again, please. Yes, this one. You can see the stove there. And This more the black. This is the point. No, this change. Okay. The black on the side of the trunk is a condenser. When you boil it, so the condenser can produce solution or secretion of that. It will show it here. Yeah, this is the solution that is the discretion from the biochar burning. You see, this is the form. And the man on the left here is the head of the Older People Club in that area. So he explained the process of the how to make biochar. So that's the, thank you very much. So.
Thank you, Kunzawan. Now, Professor Werner Kosman will talk about how to do certification and how is the carbon market evolving globally. And you can.
Can you use this way?
I think so. Hello?
It's working. Yes, okay, fine. Yes, good morning, everybody. My name is Werner Kosman. I'm from Chiang Mai as well as Eduardo. I'm working in a company dealing with carbon certification, carbon credit, and also biochar. And I'm glad to be here to you a little bit on the carbon credit market issue, which can help, as Eduardo already mentioned, to enhance the scaling up of carbon removal by using biochar, at the same time also to bring more income to the rural area and especially to the elder people. I'm actually not an expert on aging population. I'm old already, but not in this field actually. But I think the carbon credit can add value to biochar and by this also to communities and elder people. So let's look into the biochar carbon credit market. We have heard already from Eduardo that it's very much needed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, otherwise we will not be able to survive. We are lacking behind the Paris Agreement goals actually quite substantially. So for the next, how many years? 6, 7 years still to go until 2030, we really have to raise up our activities in reducing and mitigating carbon emissions. One way is the reduction of carbon emission and the other way is the removal of carbon emissions. Reduction is still the primary goal to reduce because, as also Eduardo says, the energy sector, which is about 70% of our carbon emission globally, fossil fuel, need to be coming down to zero and has to be replaced by renewable energies. This is a big effort, but doable, and we have to support this. The other one is carbon removal. Carbon removal actually is since, I would say, since 3-4 years. Let me just go and, okay. Carbon removal actually is an issue since about 4 or 5 years when companies, but also countries, declared that they are going to be net zero. Net zero on carbon emission means there's nothing actually left. You're carbon neutral, and but there is still residual carbon, which is difficult to mitigate. So you need to compensate this. And this compensation has to be done with carbon removal. Good. I would like to first introduce you into the carbon market a little bit. Carbon market is a market as any other market. It's directed by supply and demand, and it has a commodity. The commodity in this case is the certificate, the carbon certificate, which has been removed or reduced from the atmosphere. This carbon certificate actually represents 1 ton of of CO2 emission equivalents. This equivalent is important because we are not talking only about CO2 emissions, but also other emissions, for example, NO2 or nitrate oxide and methane, for example. So this is all balanced to CO2 equivalents. It is one tradable carbon credit equals to 1 ton of carbon dioxide, as I said, equivalent amount of different greenhouse gas emissions. The carbon market actually is a financing instrument. The carbon market helps to bring money into the society, basically, to reduce and remove carbon emissions. So it is another instrument beside many other instruments which we know to finance mitigation. We have 2 markets basically. One is the voluntary market, the other one is the compliance market. The voluntary market is basically done among the private sector, companies. It's not very much regulated, and it's free, it's voluntarily. You don't have to do it, but you can do it. Many big companies now doing it, especially in the tech sector, Microsoft and so on. They're all going with compensation of their emissions, and they're buying carbon credits for this. Then we have the compliance market, which is the market mostly on government level. It has a clear regulation. There is a system, a trading system behind it, and companies are legally bound to reduce carbon emission. And if they cannot fulfill their targets, they have to buy credits to compensate. I think this slide already we had before. Eduardo showed it that basically we have different kind of technologies which remove carbon. The most important one still, and this is about 99% of the removal, is done by forestation, reforestation, and also by soil carbon sequestration. But these technologies or these methods are not very stable in terms of permanence. So that means a forest or a tree, you can say more than 100 years, it has been decomposed already, or maybe before it has been cut already. So it's not very robust, not very strong in terms of removal. The same applies to carbon sequestration. But then biochar, bioenergy with carbon capture like BECCS and DACS. DACS actually is the most modern technology, as it captures carbon from the atmosphere by big fans sucking the air and then chemically dividing it in different streams, and the CO2 is going to be sequestered mainly in deep, what you call this, wells in the earth, and there it's been captured for hundreds, for thousands of years. Enhanced weathering is another one. Then we have also in the ocean, the capturing systems and storage systems, ocean alkalinity enhancement and blue carbon management. Complicated, not yet very much developed. This actually should show you that where we are with our biochar in the market at the moment. how is biochar doing in the carbon market? So you can see from June or May 2022, not that long ago, actually, the biochar market evolved, became active. Why? Because the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change, actually acknowledged the permanence of carbon removal by biochar. So that means it is accepted in the market as a technology to really remove carbon emission. So that was around in May 2022. Since then, the market has really developed, and now we can see it has, this refers not only to biochar, sorry, this is also the carbon dioxide removal, so all the others are involved in this. It says that 2.7 million US dollar have been spent on CO2 removal since 2019, but the amount was in the last 2 years actually. If we look in this next slide, we can see that who has delivered CO2 removal credits mostly is biochar, actually. Still at a low level, but at the moment biochar is the one technology which has delivered most of the carbon removal. And I think this is encouraging. This should show you that the market is active, that it can absorb biochar carbon removal credits, and they will be sold. Here a little bit on the pricing. You see this ocean alkalinity, direct ocean removal, surface mineralization. These are all so-called novel removal technologies, still in the process of being developed, not yet fully applied, still in the kind of a research stage. Very expensive still, because it's not yet scaled up. But still being sold on the market. But you can see that the biochar, that is the last one, or the second last one, if you look at the price of 150 is quite low, and with a low price it becomes competitive in the market. That means it goes well in the market, and we could see this before. It has been delivered quite a bit, so there are sellers very much interested in this biochar carbon removal because the price is quite low. So to develop a credit, actually you need a standard for this. To certify a product, you always need to have a standard, a label behind it. At the moment, for biochar carbon credits standards, we have 5, let's say, main standards globally. It's Puro, it's actually the first one who has been developed, is a European, I think it's even a German standard, and it's mainly designed for industrial production. We have VCS, which stands for Voluntary Carbon Standard. It's also called VERA, mainly in the US. CSI, and this is a very interesting standard, I think also for us here, because it's a standard which addresses the carbon removal issue at community level. And I think with this standard, CSI, it stands for Carbon Standard International. They are based in, I'm not sure, in Switzerland, I think. We could also go with community carbon removal and also include the elderly people. CAR and reverse are mainly in the US and not so well known. So here, this is my second last slide, and I would just like to show you steps involved and who are the key stakeholders. I refer to the CSI standard. The CSI standard, as I said, can be applied at community level, at farm level, or individual level, actually. And it involves, well, 7 major steps. You have to register a project first. This can be done, for example, with a community or with an NGO. It can be done a company who would like to invest, so they can register this project. Then they have to go through a capacity building process to become a sink manager. That means he is able to manage the carbon removal until it is back in the soil. Then the sink manager actually is then able to train the biochar producers. This could be the elder people, for example, to be trained in how to make the biochar, and so that they can start producing biochar. So the number 4 process point is very important. It's the monitoring. Everything actually at the end depends on the monitoring, how accurate it has been done, how transparently it has been done, and you have to follow the process indicators. So this is being supervised then by the artisan sink manager, but it has to be done by the local community. I have to say that this monitoring nowadays is being done digitally, so they're using digital devices, an app on your mobile phone to carry out the monitoring. Then it has to be certified. Once you have an amount of carbon which you would like to get certified, you have to have a third-party auditor to come and do the certification. Once it is certified, it will go to be transferred to your registry, and there it's being kept as a credit, as a certified carbon credit. This process actually looks simple, but actually it's quite difficult to do, and you need good expertise, good support from outside also, especially in the communities, to carry out. But it is doable, it can be done, and yes, I would encourage very much the communities and also the older people to go for it. And I think we have a good example in Thailand already, who has started the registration and also the certification of biochar carbon credits, and perhaps we can discuss it further after my presentation and see how we can also enhance and stimulate this process in other regions. This is a very interesting manual for biochar carbon removal. I can recommend it. Anyone who is interested in this process, please download it. It's free of charge. You can download it from the internet, and it gives you all further information. I think that's it from my side, and perhaps we can further discuss it also with the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Werner. So, in short, what time is it? Can anybody tell me the time? Yeah, we're 5 minutes over, but let me summarize. We have a huge number of older people associations, community-based organizations that are able and willing to be part of this initiative. On the other hand, we have a carbon credit market that is growing and that is a potential source of income for communities. We can merge this older people associations, these community-based organizations, with this technology that is relatively easy, that is good for the environment, good for the communities, good for the soil, good for the agriculture, good for everyone. And we have been discussing what is bad with biochar. There is Actually, nothing. The only thing is that we need the entrepreneurial capacity to pull all these parts together. And this is something new, but we need to start. Confucius said, if you want to climb that mountain, you have to start with the first step. We have done 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, but we're still a long way, but we can do it. So this is the idea that we wanted to convey today of how older people can get, in practical terms, in mitigation, active and productive older people. I don't know, Jessica, I don't think we have time for questions, maybe some burning things. If not, there is a stand there in the exhibition part where, solely on biochar, and you have some figures, some estimates of costs, some estimates of income that can further dwell into this idea. And if not, I think, Harry, we fit. Okay, one comment over here. May we have one short comment? I'll give you the microphone. Maybe you can come, please, come forward.
Terima kasih, thank you. My name is Antoro Rajiman. Everybody call me Uncle Sam. I'm activist from a Rotary Club and also activist in Active Ordinary Care for Indonesia, Lantip Indonesia. Just formed 10 years ago with all the formal officials in government become getting old like me. And he have an idea to form the NGO to look after the ordinary people who especially cannot be independent. I'm really appreciate that today we get invitation from Bapenas and learning from what we have now. My point here come to this important meeting, and I've been spoke with Pak Maliki yesterday, that we try to put back the Komnas Lansia, mean the national mission for the ordinary in Indonesia to be back on street. Because 3 years ago, the commission had been banned during COVID because governments really need the money. I'm really learned a lot the past 2 days, and especially with all data that we all like or dislike, we be getting old every day. And looking all the data that you presented yesterday, all the old people in Indonesia, the productivity is only 0.3%. It's very sad. Comparing with India, almost 1.5%. That if we all Indonesian people, especially have been firm in government, is not really talking serious, we have the liability. It's not potential to boost the economic, but we carry the problem. I really appreciate with the invitation that everybody here from Indonesian NGO and all this, please hand hands together. I've been spoke with Pak Maliki yesterday and also from BKPN. We can work together to put back the Komnas Lansia Indonesia or Active Ordinary Care for Indonesia to be back on the track. Thank you. Terima kasih, Pak. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much. So I think we must finish now. My friend from PG. I'll give you the microphone. I think it is here. We are taking time from the coffee break, mind you.
Thank you for the very impressive presentations. I believe when it comes to climate change, this is something that the Pacific hold dear to their heart. And with all the initiatives that we discuss here, with all the experts that we have in the panel, for the Pacific, we see this as a means to right some of the wrongs and the decision that we made a few years back that is now affecting us. Just to be clear that most of the Pacific islands, they are victims of these circumstances and the situations that we have now. So I've seen the discussion on biochar and looking at the raw materials. If we are not have strict monitoring and control, there could be environmental hazards as well, because they already have limited trees in the Pacific. And in terms of carbon trading, maybe if we can get some analysis on the funding that is going towards the Pacific, so that we can see how this benefits us as Asia Pacific and not just Asia alone. And in terms of ocean fertilization, the Pacific mainly depends on the sea for their survival. So hopefully we are making some sensible decision in doing this. Because if you're coming to Fiji, some of our communities, during high tides, they are not doing anything because their whole compound is covered with seawater. So the children and the adults are indoors. Even the older people have to work for 2 or 3 hours to go to their farms because of the soil salinity, and they are not able to grow their food beside their houses. So we are adding on to their suffering. And in terms of voluntary carbon markets, I believe there are still some work that needs to be done. And hopefully, we see how we can progress together when it comes to climate change. Because we see that Asia is a bit in front and the Pacific is somewhere at the back. So it's how we bridge the gap and see that everybody benefits in what it is that we are talking about. Vinaka.
Thank you very much. I think very, very clear. And I think we finish this session now with just from the help page side, we are going to share this initiative and seek more ideas within the network in Asia Pacific on how to move in an entrepreneurial way. And we are going to try to persuade, work with our friends of the China National Committee of Aging, for example, to seek engagement in this project. Thailand is another one, Bangladesh, India, several countries can start up with this initiative. Thank you very much, and then we hope that you have gotten some new ideas, even there at raw stage, and let's have a coffee break and continue with our sessions. Thank you very much.